It doesn't start with a scream, it starts with a whisper. A subtle devaluation, a gaslighting remark. For millions, narcissistic abuse erodes identity so gradually that victims can't name their pain until long after the relationship ends. Narcissistic abuse isn't a formal diagnosis in the DSM-5-TR, but it's a recognized pattern of psychological manipulation and emotional exploitation. Perpetrators often exhibit significant narcissistic traits or narcissistic personality disorder. Unlike physical abuse, this operates through subtle mechanisms: gaslighting, love bombing, intermittent reinforcement, triangulation, and devaluation cycles. Research by Green and Charles in the Journal of Clinical Psychology found survivors report unique symptoms: chronic self-doubt, identity confusion, hypervigilance to criticism, and cognitive dissonance paralysis, where the mind can't reconcile the abuser's idealizing phase with their devaluing behavior. This isn't just heartbreak. It's a profound disorientation of reality. How common is this? While 1 to 6% of the population meets criteria for narcissistic personality disorder, subclinical traits are far more widespread and equally damaging. The CDC reports nearly 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced psychological aggression from an intimate partner, but these numbers likely underestimate narcissistic abuse dynamics. Many victims don't recognize the pattern until years later, and the abuse often goes unreported because it leaves no visible bruises. The reality is that millions are trapped in relationships that slowly dismantle their sense of self, often without knowing what's happening to them. One of the most insidious aspects of narcissistic abuse is the neurochemical addiction it creates. The cycle of love bombing followed by devaluation triggers a powerful dopamine response, a pattern of intermittent reinforcement that's both psychologically and physiologically addictive. Dr. Judith Herman, a Harvard trauma researcher, explains that the abuser's unpredictability creates a trauma bond remarkably resistant to breaking. Neuroimaging studies show survivors have hyperactivity in the amygdala and anterior cingulate cortex, regions tied to threat detection and emotional pain, along with reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, which governs rational decision-making. This explains why survivors feel stuck, unable to logically process the abuse. Gaslighting systematically denies a victim's reality, and the effects are measurable. A landmark study by Shaw and colleagues in psychological trauma found survivors of narcissistic abuse show significantly higher rates of fragmented autobiographical memory compared to other trauma survivors. Gaslighting creates memory erosion, where survivors can't trust their own recollections. This fragmentation prevents the coherent narrative integration necessary for post-traumatic growth. Victims often feel like they are losing their mind, but the truth is their brain is adapting to an environment where reality is constantly distorted. Rebuilding that trust in memory is a core challenge in recovery. Recovery isn't linear, but research identifies distinct phases. The first is the awakening, the shattering of denial. Survivors begin to recognize the relationship wasn't what it seemed. This is often triggered by a last straw event, a particularly cruel devaluation, infidelity, or a moment when the abuser's mask slips permanently. This awakening is psychologically painful but essential. Without it, recovery can't begin. It's the moment when the fog lifts, and the survivor sees the pattern for what it is, not a series of misunderstandings, but a calculated system of control. The pain is real, but so is the clarity. The second phase is the grief storm, a complex grief reaction different from typical bereavement. Survivors mourn not just the loss of the relationship, but the loss of the idealized partner they believed existed, a person who never actually was. This grief is compounded by shame, guilt, and the humiliation of having been deceived. Research by Lancer in Psychotherapy Networker found this phase often lasts 3 to 6 months, marked by intrusive thoughts, nightmares, and emotional dysregulation. It's a storm that feels endless, but it's also a sign that the survivor is processing the truth. The pain has a purpose. The most cognitively demanding phase is the reconstruction of reality. Survivors must systematically rebuild their sense of reality, which has been systematically dismantled. This involves fact-checking memories against external evidence, journals, text messages, accounts from trusted others. It means reclaiming language to name the abuse, gaslighting, triangulation, devaluation. This phase is about re-establishing trust in one's own mind. It's slow, painstaking work, but each validated memory is a brick in a new foundation. Survivors learn to distinguish the abuser's narrative from their own truth, and that distinction is the bedrock of lasting recovery. Recovery from narcissistic abuse is a journey of reclaiming your mind, your memory, and your identity. If you found this valuable, consider exploring more on trauma and healing.